we just can't see you.
Okay. That's good enough. We're going to go ahead and start now that we have you guys.
Yep.
All right. With the posted time having arrived and a quorum of members present, I'll call the Capital Improvements and Street Maintenance Committee for the City of Wausau to order. We'll go ahead and mute them because we're hearing it back through. Okay. Today is Thursday, April 14th, 2022. The first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the March 10th, 2022 meeting, copies of which are in the packets. Any revisions or corrections necessary for the minutes?
I will move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes from Neil. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Larson. Since we have Alder Ryan on WebEx, we'll go ahead and voice vote. Wadinsky? Neil?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Ryan? Larson? Since we have Alder Ryan on WebEx, we'll go ahead and voice vote. Wadinsky? Neil?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Ryan? Larson?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved unanimously. Looks like we've got a lag in the internet, so between the time that we actually say it and they hear it, it looks like we've got about a half a minute. Item number 2 is a public hearing for vacating and discontinuing excess public right-of-way located on the east side of 17th Avenue abutting the west property line of 1607 Chella Street, the south property line of 1427 Lake Street, and a portion of the south property line of 1425 Lake Street. At this point, I'll open the public hearing. Is anyone here from the public to speak to this item? Come on up, sir, and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Gizo Jarmeli. I live on 920 Hamilton Street, Wausau, 54403.
Okay.
I represent Wausau Real Estate LLC, and I am the owner of the property on Lake Street. That's 1427 Lake Street. And I do have accepted offer on other 2 parcels with an owner, and those 2 parcels are 1607 and 1601 Chellis, and that offer is contingent upon today's hearing. So that's pretty much all.
Okay. All right. We'll have to call 3 times for public comment. Anyone else here to speak to this item? Vacating excess public right-of-way located on the east side of 17th Avenue, abutting the west property line of 1607 Chella Street, the south property line of 1427 Lake Street, and a portion of the south property line of 1425 Lake Street. Anyone else here for that item? Last call for public comment in the public hearing on this item. Seeing no additional comment, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And then it looks like the staff can move to discussion of this item right away. Alan has this item, and it looks like the staff recommendation is to go ahead and approve the vacation. Anything you'd like to add, Alan? Committee members, how do you feel?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Sure, go
I
ahead.
have something to add.
Yep.
I guess I would like to ask you, sir, if what is contingent on? What do you? I mean, is your sale contingent on if it goes through, or if it doesn't go through, or?
No, the offer is contingent upon approval today. If this committee approves the vacation, I will go forward and purchase the other 2 lots, and that way we will be able, at some point, hopefully, connect.
Oh, so you are the developer that wants to put the apartments up?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Additional comment? Go ahead, Tom.
Well, this is the second time it's come before this committee, and so we can act on it tonight. I would go
Yep.
ahead and move to approve.
Okay. Motion by Neil to approve the vacation?
I have one other thing to add.
Okay. Let me
You
get
know,
a second first. Do we have a second? Second by Wadinsky? Go ahead, Lou.
I guess I put this out on the Facebook page, and I'm surprised that more, on the neighborhood page, more people aren't here. Reluctantly, I guess I'm going to have to go forward and support this, because I feel that, on one end that, it's nice to have development, it's nice to have more tax dollars, is because, our services are increasing. But at the other side of me says the citizens part is that, what are we going to end up with? Are we going to end up with another sore thumb like we've got along Thomas Street, and the residents along Thomas Street are very upset about the buildings that are there. So I guess I'll, due to the fact that there's, hasn't been any more citizen response, I will reluctantly go forward with this.
Okay. And I'm sure that there's planning and zoning to be considered as well, with whatever is to be built there. So additional comments or questions? With a motion and a second on the floor to approve the right-of-way vacation, we'll go ahead and vote. Ryan? A motion and a second on the floor to approve the right-of-way vacation. We'll go ahead and vote. Ryan?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Wadinsky?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
I'll vote aye as well, and then that item is approved. That takes care of 2 and 3. Item 4, discussion and possible action on a preliminary resolution to hold a public hearing to vacate and discontinue a public walkway abutting 3317 Polsher Drive, 3311 Polsher Drive, 3312 Wildwood Lane, and 3318 Wildwood Lane. Staff recommendation on this one is to move forward with the public hearing so we can get public input. Anything that you want to add on this one, Alan?
Nope, I would just, the residents came forward, the petition is signed by all 4 abutters. The city at this point doesn't have any plans to put a walk through there, so I would say we go to the public hearing.
Okay. Do we have a motion to go ahead and schedule a public hearing? Motion by Wadinsky, is there a second? Second by Larson. Comment, Sarah? I see Sarah's hand is up online.
So it's sort of strange. The only time I actually hear anything in the meeting is when Deb's unmuted. Because I'm guessing you guys have been holding the meeting for a while.
We,
And it's just,
we have, we can hear you. Can you hear us now, Sarah? We have, we can hear you.
now I can hear you.
Okay, so I think we'll have to make
Yep.
sure that we have that switched when we need Sarah's comments for the next
And
item.
it's like when Deb's unmuted, I can hear you.
Okay, it sounds like we've got a little lag in the internet too. Yeah, probably. It sounds like we've got a little lag in the internet too. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor then to schedule a public hearing for agenda item 4. Further discussion or comment?
We have a motion and a second on the floor then to.
Seeing none,
schedule a
we'll go
public
ahead and
hearing for
vote.
agenda item 4. Further
Ryan?
discussion or comment? We have a motion and a second on the floor then to.
Seeing none,
we'll go ahead and vote agenda item 4. Ryan?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Wadinsky?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
I'll vote aye as well, and then that item is approved. Item number 5 is discussion and possible action on parking restrictions on the north side of Cedar Street between North 3rd Avenue and North 4th Avenue. This item actually comes to us from Alder Watson. It's in District 8. They've had some difficulty with cars parking on both sides of that street, especially in the winter, particularly in the winter, with then being able to get snowplows through there and trash collection and things because the parked cars are really narrowing the right-of-way.
Particularly in the winter, with then being able to get snowplows through there and trash collection and things because the parked cars are really narrowing the right-of-way.
And so with that, we had this street looked at to see if there would be value in adding a no parking here to corner near the intersection, near the corners of this street where those turning movements need to happen. Alder Watson had submitted some photos of what the street looks like, and it was not even on a Sunday, ironically. Some of this parking happens up the street to the west of Trinity Lutheran Church. And so even when church isn't in session, the parking is an issue. And I know that she'd had some discussion on that with Alan. Do you have some comments on that, Alan?
Yes, so the request, I guess just a little background here. From the map, you can, or from the first photo, there is a no parking loading zone designation. There's a sign out there. But it's not recorded anywhere in the municipal code, so it's not enforceable. Right, Tara?
Okay.
Right. So someone put the loading zone sign up, but, so that's one thing. So the initial request from Alderperson Watson was to have no parking on the entire north side of Cedar Street between 3rd and 4th Avenue. So Cord and I reviewed it, and talking with the church and looking at the situation, we did, it sounds like they do need the loading zone, and they do drop people off there, so the recommendation would be to keep that loading zone there, and put it into ordinance. But also, we thought it made sense to put no parking back to corner from that loading zone, from the east side of the loading zone to the corner, because traffic can have a higher speed coming off of 3rd Avenue. And especially with that higher speed off 3rd Avenue, that would make that, if it's parked there, it can make it a difficult and also a sight distance issue. So what we recommend that as a minimum is what's shown on the map. And that doesn't mean that you can't put hard parking on the whole north side of the block. The way we left it, the item is discussion and possible action on parking on the whole north side, so.
So is it possible that with this, we would do two things? First, codify basically pedestrian drop-off and pickup is what they're looking for. I think the situation with the church is where they're doing that drop-off and loading zone. That side of the building is where one makes entry into the church to utilize the elevator. And so I think we want to be able to protect that access for them as long as people are just pulling in, dropping off, pulling in, picking up, and not parking and sitting there for an extended period. But then separate from that, could we look at the restriction on the north side of Cedar like we do on many other streets where we have access issues? When the snow is there, it's worse. Could we do that between November 1st and April 1st? Where we just have a winter parking restriction, and in the summer, it's less of a problem. And I had talked with Alder Watson about that the other night. I want to see if we can get her audio so we can get some comment from her. Sarah, can you hear us?
Tonight, I want to see if we can get her audio so we can get some comment from her. Sarah, can you hear us?
Yep, now I can.
Okay, go ahead with your comments about Cedar.
I know it's sort of annoying with the reverb, so I won't be long, and I can leave directly after I make comments. I just was hoping maybe advocate for something like a winter weather, like during the winter months, just limiting parking on the north side, just because of plowing and how much the snow accumulates. So that would be my ask to you guys, but if the proposed plan is agreeable to all of you, that's perfect as well too. So thank you for your consideration, and I'm sorry my WebEx has been annoying.
Nope, I think the issue is everyone's WebEx, so not to worry about that. Thank you for those comments. So is that a possibility, Alan, that we would first codify the loading zone? That would allow that space, because what is the loading zone time? Is there a time specification?
Well, you can put whatever time you
Allow
want
that
on there.
space, because what is the loading zone time? Is it?
Let me get it muted. There we go.
You could put 15-minute loading zone.
I think that makes sense, just to pick up and drop off people.
There we go.
I think it would probably be mine and Cord's recommendation that the no parking here to corner be year-round.
Yes.
And then, if you want to make no parking, whatever months from the east side of the loading zone to 4th Avenue, from the west side of the loading zone to 4th Avenue, I guess that would be at your discretion. You can do.
That's been helpful in a number of other neighborhoods where we've had issues where the plows can't get through, and when they're parked in there, there is even trouble with trash pickup, so.
I guess that would be at your discretion. You can do.
That's been helpful in a number of other neighborhoods.
Okay, and so what are your thoughts, committee, if we would preserve the loading zone year-round, 15-minute at the corner, and then restrict the north side from November 1st to April 1st? That would really help us with the snow removal side of things. Jim?
I'm good with the first part as indicated in our packet. I think that's a good solution, Have the loading zone, have the no parking here to corner. But that last part about seasonal winter parking, it wasn't in our packet, so it doesn't give any residents opportunity to
Well, the agenda item is rather broad. It says discussion and possible action on parking restrictions on the north side of Cedar between 3rd and 4th. So it could be any combination of things as long as it's confined to the north side. I think we're okay with the way our agenda is.
Correct, but I still think public should be aware of it before we would vote on that part. Just my take on that.
Okay? So what are your thoughts, committee? Do you want to take it as two separate items? So you could, with this particular item, you can codify the loading zone, and then we could carry over to the next agenda an item specifically notating the west side of the loading zone to 4th Avenue? Would that? Tom, go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair. I would make a motion to go ahead with both the loading zone delineation, the back-to-corner delineation, and adding the seasonal, to the west. Looking at the overhead, I only see 2 residences affected by that, and they both have driveways and garages, so it's not really a parking on street issue that would seemingly do them any harm. Whereas, from the standpoint of, the snow clearing and, getting plows through and that sort of thing, it makes sense if, it would help out. So I would make a motion as you have put forth.
Okay, for both items?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second to that
I will
motion?
second.
Second from Larson. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the item. Wadinski?
Do we have a second?
No.
Neil?
Aye.
Larson?
Discussion or
Aye.
questions?
Ryan?
Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the item. Waddensky?
No.
Neal? Aye. Larson?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye. And I'll vote aye as well. And then that item will pass 4-1. That brings us to item number 6, discussion and possible action on a detour agreement with Wisconsin DOT regarding project ID 6999-1271, County Highway U Bridge over US 51. I'm not sure if we're all aware, but reading the packets, I knew this because it's in my district. A overheight vehicle a number of months ago, I believe in the fall, struck the underside of that bridge on County U where it crosses over on Merrill Avenue there, just east of Sound World, and damaged a number of the underside supports. And so it sounds like DOT is going to have to take that bridge out of service for a bit and make necessary repairs. Alan, did you want to walk us through the detour plan?
Sure, so if you look, I got my crude map on here. So if you're at the roundabout at K, your on-ramp to to US Highway 51 South will be closed. So they need, the DOT, that's their traffic, so they need to detour it. So what they would do is detour it on Business 51, like southbound, through the campus intersection, and then up Merrill Avenue and down the U ramp. So really really where we enter the city's roads is at that intersection with Merrill Avenue and 51, and then Merrill Avenue is our responsibility. So they're asking for basically permission to route the K traffic and that on-ramp traffic in that way. So we're giving them permission. As you can see from the agreement, they would agree to the maintenance during that closure.
Okay.
And they'll log the roads, videotape the roads before, and if there's any excess wear, they'll fix it.
Okay. Jim, go ahead.
I would move to approve the detour as requested.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the detour. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second from Neil. Further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the item. Larson?
Do we have
Aye.
Wadinski?
Aye.
Neil?
Aye.
Ryan?
Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the item. Larson?
Aye.
Waddensky? Neal?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye. And I'll vote aye as well, and that item is approved. Okay. One thing we'll have to watch for with that traffic flow through there is just to make sure that there's not a tremendous impact to the adjacent properties. There is being that this is in the fall with winter coming on, it may be less walked, but we'll just have to kind of monitor and see what the situation is there, but it seems like the only reasonable alternative, so.
And just so everyone's aware, 51 will be down to one-lane traffic in each direction during this construction period. So it's going to be a bottleneck on the highway for the 2 months they'll be constructing.
Okay. Hopefully they're done before the snow. Let's see here. So then item number 7 is discussion and possible action on the proposed 2023 street construction projects and the 5-year plan. And Ellen, if you want to walk us through that.
We're at the 2023 to 27 5-year plan. I made an attempt at, if we want to focus on 2023, the previous 5-year plan did have 10th Avenue on there and Grant Street. So those two stay. If you'll notice, Henrietta Street from Bellis to 13th Street, that has been moved up to 23. That was, if you look at, from the old plan, that was scheduled for 2025. However, Jackson Street was moved off to 23. What happened with Jackson Street is it got so deteriorated that DPW came in and did a partial overlay, and it's kind of held together for the last 2 years, so we've taken it off the list, and we'll look at it in the future. So Henrietta moved up. 24, well, I guess we can stick on 23 there. North 17th Avenue from Stewart to Elm. I'll come back to that one. 2024 remained the same with that Eau Claire Boulevard and those couple side streets that adjoin it. I added Stewart Avenue to the list just to make sure that everybody remembers that that's on there. That's a DOT project, obviously a huge DOT project that will be funded by the DOT and TID 10. 2025 Stark Street remains on there, and then 8th Avenue was added because Henrietta was moved up. And then 26 Randolph Street is the main street there. Kind of shuffled things around there too because 3rd Avenue and Eldred tie in to Randolph. Some of the, just for background, that's some of the worst water main in the city as far as breaks. So we figured it made sense to do 3rd and Eldred at the same time we do Randolph. So then that pushed 11th Avenue down to 2027. And then we added Fulton Street from 1st to 7th and 1st Street and River Drive. I mean, those can fluctuate. We like to hold them, obviously, because it helps us with our future planning. So if we go back to 2023, I guess that's kind of the most important thing that we settle on today for sure, just because we need to start planning, especially with today's economy and the way things are going and with the water and sewer. And we actually are probably going to be in a situation where the water and sewer department are going to have to pre-order materials here in June to get them by next April, May. So it's important that we know the streets that we're going to do. So the reason I wanted to bring up 17th Avenue too is because engineering department applied for some funding through the state, through the LRIP program, and we were able to secure $400,000 of funding for North 17th Avenue. And the LRIP funding is it's a very good pot of money to get because it's less intense than some of the STP urbans as far as the design. So they basically give us the $400,000 to spend, and we can get that. We'll design that street and house and go through that process. The issue with that is obviously you can see the construction cost. That's about $1.2 million, and we have $400,000 money towards that, a grant. So that means that $800,000 is going to have to come from somewhere else. My concern with that obviously is if we don't want to turn away the money, the $400,000, but if we do accept it, we have a commitment to come up with $800,000, and that would basically wipe out 10th Avenue, Henrietta, and Grant Street. It would be our only street. So I would be looking for support that we would look for ARPA funds for that possibly. or something, you know, because I don't want those other streets to go away.
You know, 17th, I think you'll get a resounding cheer from the community for doing 17th Avenue, period. The road is so bad. People complain about that on about a daily basis. You know, with ARPA, one of the focuses there is on underground utility stuff and, you know, lead and whatnot. Those other three streets that you picked are much older, right? So, you know, if you were going to request ARPA for some portion of a project, wouldn't it make sense that you would request it for the other three that are much older, so that some of that infrastructure could be replaced under there, and then, you know, perhaps use bond borrowing for that 17th, since it's a newer stretch? Just a thought there. I mean, you know, if you're looking to replace water, sewer, and eradicate lead, that's absolutely a fit for ARPA, but that stuff is probably more prevalent in the other three streets.
I would agree with that. These costs shown on here do not include sewer and water costs or storm sewer costs. This is just street costs. So I guess we'd have to find a way to offset the street costs.
Are any of these in census tracts such that we could get block grant help?
Not 10th, not Grant, maybe Henrietta.
Okay, that would be worth looking into as well, just to see, but,
Yeah. So it kind of came as a surprise because some of these projects are coming at us. And when we applied for just so you're aware, when we applied for the MSI, the LRIP funding for 17th Avenue, the funding was supposed to be 50/50. But it's a statewide competitive grant, and there were only 39 projects throughout the whole state awarded money. So it was pretty good, we got it. But what they did, they capped out the contributing amount for the state at $400,000.
okay.
So some of the projects got funded at 50/50, but obviously if you had over $800,000 project, your funding isn't 50/50. So we got the max amount that we could out of this program.
Well, and one thing we don't know is if we'll have any project savings on the 2022 projects. Because if that is the case, we could plan to earmark that carryover right away? Or do you think we're already going to be short with what the bids are looking like?
With the bids are coming at, we're already short.
Oh, darn, okay. Okay. What are your thoughts on this list, committee? I mean, they're all in rough shape.
I think, oh, pardon me.
Go ahead.
Madam
No,
Chair.
go ahead.
I think the list is a great list, but I also think,
Deb here, can you hear me?
Yep, hold on, Deb, Lou is speaking.
that's right, let her go ahead.
Oh, okay. Deb, go ahead with your comment quick.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Deb.
All right, well, a few weeks ago, I had emailed everyone about the deadline for the infrastructure. That is June 1st for the infrastructure through the state. So, are some of these 5-year projects could be sped up and included in this June 1st application deadline?
Go ahead, Ellen.
Well, there's a couple different deadlines for that too, with the BIL, the bipartisan infrastructure that came out. There was a 22 deadline and there's a 23 through 26 deadline. The 23 through 26 deadline is what Deb's talking about. So we will be looking at submitting some projects for that. There are stipulations on that it has to be a collector or an arterial, and it cannot be on a connecting highway, so that those designations limit. None of these would meet that other than 17th Avenue. So the 22 deadline already passed. I did put in an application for 18th Street from East Wausau Avenue to the high school to do that. Now that has stipulations on it too. It's a fast track project, so we don't know if we're going to get that funding yet, and it would have to be bid later this year through the DOT process, and the funding would be encumbered next year. So that's also a project we may have to come back to this committee with. If we do get that funding, that will be 80/20 funding, which is, obviously a better funding. This is all moving so fast, but yet it's hard to say whether we're going to get that funding yet, because the MPO urged us to apply, but yet we don't know the funding level, and the DOT says they won't know until I think it's May, Eric? May. So it's like, but yet they want us to start. So we're kind of in a quandary how to handle some of this stuff, because we don't want to miss any of the money, but yet the
Right.
city, we're committing, if we put these projects in, we'll have to decide whether we want to accept and move forward with them, because even like 18th Street there, even at only 20%, you're still talking like almost a $200,000 investment from the city.
Right. The thing with our infrastructure projects, though, as we go through CIP and through our budget process, we know that until the budget is finalized, that street reconstruction projects can be shifted or delayed. And so it seems to me that it would make sense that we would move forward, at least at this early stage, with a full list. And then if we find that we're either not funded or that we can't meet the timeline for the construction or for the spend down on a particular street, if we need to make adjustments, I think we could make those subsequently, right?
Yes, you're right. I just want to make sure this committee knows we are applying to all the funding that we are aware of. We applied for both cycles. This 22 cycle was only us and the Village of Weston that applied out of the whole MPO. Now the 23 to 26, I'm sure all the other MPO communities will jump in with funding requests too, and those will all get graded by the MPO. So who knows where our projects will rank then, but to Deb's, we will be applying for all the funds we can get.
Okay. And so, I think that obviously what we have on the list, we know is stuff that needs to be done. And, like you said, with the underground infrastructure as well as the pavement. So these projects that we have for 2024 these are the ones that we put off 2 years ago, right? This in District 1, because we shuffled them and we did them in other districts.
Correct.
Okay,
So that's been sitting on our shelves for 2 years.
yes, and those neighborhoods have been waiting, so that certainly makes sense. 2026, doing all of those together makes some sense, but it will have a robust system of detours. The only thing I will ask for on that, whether I'm the rep in the neighborhood or not by 2026, is that entire area is affected. There is Marathon Electric traffic on there that has to get through on a daily basis. That's going to have to get rerouted. And we cannot have a situation that impacts the school like the mess that we had with Third Avenue on the north half. So, if that means that the particular contractor that we all know that screwed up Third Avenue last summer doesn't get to bid, or whether we have strict start and completion dates and some serious fines, we're going to have to manage that appropriately. I know that particular neighborhood has told me on multiple occasions that the contractor that was out there last summer, they're fine if they never see him again. So the projects need done, but we're going to have to be judicious with how we manage them in that neighborhood. Any other comment from anybody on that list?
Yes, thank you,
Go
Madam
ahead,
Chair.
sure.
I don't have a problem with the list at all. I mean, gosh, what I do have a problem with is that, more streets can't get fixed faster. But what I'm asking is one of the things I don't see on this list is how many streets are listed, say, for just the overlay, cut up to 2 inches and put an overlay like they did on Thomas Street last year, when I requested that be looked at. And another thing I don't see on here is intersections. I see, I travel over the intersection. I'm going to give you one perfect example, Grand Avenue and Kent Street. I mean, I'm a motorcyclist, and I'm surprised a motorcycle hasn't gone down on that intersection, because it is just so decrepit and so worn out. I just would like to know, are these in consideration now? What's the overlay plan? What's the plan for the intersections that need it? And like I said, that Kent Street, that's bad. We need to do something there before the city gets sued.
Do you want to talk a little bit about overlay, Alan? Because they're a separate list of projects, but can we get a few a year still, I imagine?
Yes, the budget this year was 250 for overlay. And you'll be happy to know, Lou, that we are doing the intersection of Kent and Grand. But it is concrete, and typical repair on that concrete would be to cut out the joints and pull it back with concrete. However, that intersection is too far gone for that. You wouldn't know where to start and where to end. So we're going to diamond grind down that concrete and then overlay that intersection. So that will be done this year.
Thank you.
And the other portion of the overlay money is going to go on 6th Street from Forest Street up to Scott, that 3-lane. That asphalt's very bad. That's connecting highways, so we are responsible for the maintenance. So unfortunately, we are on the, and that's where $250,000 basically went, is on that intersection and on that 2 blocks of a 3-lane. So that just goes to, I mean, it was inexpensive, but everybody knows 6th Street is pretty bad.
Yeah, it's generated an awful lot of complaints.
Yes,
So-
it has. So those are our 2 main areas for overlay. We're also going to use, I should note, we're also going to use some of that overlay money to mill 10th Street, basically north of north of Town Line. And then the DPW is actually going to pave that. I think there's like 6 blocks of 10th Street we're going to do there, so.
How far north?
Just up to the top of the hill.
To Scott there, kind of? Or,
No,
Not
no,
even that
like,
far?
No, not that far, but, so we're going to try something a little different there. The DPW is going to use some of their asphalt budget to pave that in, so.
Okay.
But the 250,000 basically is going to go for those 2 stretches, in the asphalt overlay.
okay. Well, that does address some serious needs already this summer. You know, and the other thing I think we can take a look at is, depending on where we're at with infrastructure funding, does that have to be a complete rebuild, or do you see that there's going to be any opportunity for us to just do more asphalt overlay? I mean, if we're funded with some infrastructure bill funding, are we only allowed to apply for full reconstructions?
I don't believe so. No, I think we can use it for that. The issue is we have to balance, we don't like to overlay streets with, because of the lead lateral replacement also. That's coming. We
Well-
don't like to overlay older streets, so sometimes people don't understand why we're putting asphalt in maybe a street that it got curb and gutter 20 years ago, and we're milling and overlaying it, so, you know, that's another, like we did it on Burek last year. And all the lead laterals were replaced, so it made sense to mill and overlay that, so it's kind of a balancing act. And this list, you know, obviously you can see the rest of them here. There's still a lot of streets that are ranked 2 and 3.
Well, and that may be something that we have to try to coordinate, because, you know, we wanted to do at least a partial lead lateral project with some ARPA funding. We didn't want to use all the ARPA funding, but maybe some. And so maybe what we should do is take a look at where the pavement situation and where the underground utility situation is also horrible, and then coordinate that project around some of those older streets so that we can get all of it, maybe at one time. I mean, maybe that's something we need to take a look at, is, you know, if we were going to look at where to start, you know, with some ARPA funding, pick the ones that have the worst pavement conditions as well.
Maybe Eric can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, you know, that's really what's driving our street list. We look at the pavement, but then we look at the infrastructure that's underneath it as well. How much maintenance we're putting into that infrastructure every year, as Alan said, with main breaks and stuff. And then, obviously, we have the new lead and copper rule.
Yep.
And on the utility side, we're putting together a lead service line replacement plan for the DNR, which is gonna be required for us. And that will sort of outline how we're going to replace those lead service lines, how many a year, and how we are going to approach that, you know, $80 million project
Sure.
in a time that we can. And then, of course, tying that in with the street budget
Right.
how that's going to work.
Well, and I guess that's my point, because then, in that proposal for the lead service lines, would we assume that people on these streets or these on the list would be the first ones offered? Because the street's already open, people are more apt to want to replace their side. And it's easier to do when we have this open. So if we had to submit a plan for what area we would start and continue through, it would make sense that the abutting property owners to these streets would probably be the ones you'd pick out first, right? I mean, a lot of these are in older neighborhoods. There's an awful lot of pre-1965 construction on this list.
Yeah, I think, as we do these streets, like, even the last few years, we've been offering to those residents within those reconstruction areas that the availability of those forgivable loans that we're getting from the state. The idea is hopefully that we'll be able to increase the amount that we're getting every year in that. And then, but there's a lot of people that haven't taken advantage of that. And so.
Well,
it's a-
and depending on what we have for funding on a project, let's say that we were to invest some ARPA along with those grants that have been made available, you could probably get to a situation where the project is pretty much paid for the person. They just have to
Right.
agree to the, construction disruption.
Correct.
But that,
Yep.
I think that's the goal. I think when we talked about lead line replacement, people would be more apt to do it if they didn't have to fork over any of the money. And so if that's the case in areas like this, rather than offer them a forgivable loan or rather than offer them a partial payment, if we would tie some of this together and take care of it for them, because that was the intent of some of the ARPA funding to start with, maybe we would make a bigger dent in what we have to achieve there.
Yeah, that is true. Just different funding sources all coming together to help out.
Right,
Yep.
right, and just kind of just do it bigger and channel it all in the same direction, so that when you're done in an area, you're really done, would make
Right.
some sense, right? Jim?
At the rate we're going, we're never gonna catch up, and the roads are gonna fall apart and outdo our ability to maintain them and keep them up to grade, so I would suggest, our CISM chair contact the finance chair and maybe find a way in the future to get some of that done. Thank you.
So in the current situation, I just have a conversation with myself in the mirror and we figured this out. But yes, I think that going forward, that's something that, will require some coordination, because if we, like I said, if we're going to target a lead program at this area and a reconstruct in the same area, there should be the ability for all of that to work together. So, and I think from the finance side, all we were really looking for in finance was requests that we could consider and fund, and where committees like this and lists like this is what we are waiting for, from people who know what needs to happen and when. So, I think the coordination won't be real difficult as long as we know if we have money and if we can get materials. That's a big part of it. So, so this list, were you seeking, Alan, for us to approve this list today with the understanding that the grant situation is kind of in flux and we may have to make future adjustments?
Right, I guess I was looking for some approval from this committee that we could move ahead and start looking at design and, get topo and get moving ahead, because then there's obviously notices that'll have to be sent out to residents, so the 5-year plan can always shuffle, but approving this at least gives us, a reason to start working on the 2023 projects.
Yes, that'll be before us before we know it, because that budget starts in July. Tom, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, obviously, as always, the list has been thoughtfully constructed, knowing full well that there could be some down the road, pun intended, shuffling if needs be. I would certainly go ahead and move to approve the list as presented
Okay,
today.
we have a motion by Neil to accept this list.
I
Is
will
there-
second that
Second
motion.
from Larson. We'll go ahead and vote. Wadinsky?
Move to approve the list as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Neil to
Aye.
accept this list.
Neil?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
We'll go ahead and vote.
Ryan?
Waddensky? Neil?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
We'll go ahead and vote. Ryan?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye as well, and then that list is approved.
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to item number 8, discussion and possible action on amending Wausau Municipal Code Section 10.10.020, permitted deviations. And you'll see a memo in the packet from the Assistant City Attorney regarding truck traffic and truck routes. Anything that you guys would like to walk us through on that particular item?
Madam Chair?
Yes?
It was very well explained, I think, in our packet.
It was.
As to, just being in line with state, requirements, and having, whatever we can do, and whatever the state says we have to do, so.
Right.
I would move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion from Neil to approve. Do we have a second? Second by Wadinsky. Further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote.
I would move to approve.
Okay, we have a
Ryan?
motion from Neil to approve. Do we have a second? Second by Wadinsky. Further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Okay, Ryan?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Wadinsky?
Aye.
Neil?
Aye.
I'll vote aye as well. That item passes. And then our last item is discussion and possible action on accepting dedication of right-of-way for Timber Trail Drive. And Alan has this one, and we've got some good maps in our packets here for a future phase of the Fountain Hills subdivision, it looks like.
Yes, so they're proposing to do a one-lot CSM to sell off a portion of the Timber Trail Drive, and I think, Tom, are you here to speak of this? So, and I apologize, actually, one of the maps in here proposed right away from CSM is that the pink square is really not in the right location. It is more down on Aspen Grove Drive. But anyway, what dedicating this as a right-of-way will do, preserve the corridor to do the next phase of the subdivision. So what we wanted to do was to make sure that if this lot is sold, that it doesn't preclude us, or the developer from developing that second phase to the north. If this right-of-way wasn't dedicated and this lot was sold, what could happen is that we would have to go back to the owner and say, hey, now can we get some right-of-way? So what this does is when it's sold to the owner, it's shown on the CSM that right-of-way is dedicated for future.
Sure, and it would just be sold with the understanding that that piece they can't build on or anything.
Correct.
Awesome, okay. Committee members, any additional questions on that? If not, is there a motion to accept the dedication of right-of-way?
I move to approve.
Motion by Neil, is there a second? Second by Wadinsky. We'll go ahead and vote. Larson?
Aye.
Neil?
The dedication of right-of-way.
Wadinsky?
Aye.
Ryan?
Motion by Neil, is there a second? Second by Wadinsky. We'll go ahead and vote. Larson?
Aye.
Neil?
Aye.
Wadinsky?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye as well. And that takes care of that item. That is the end of our agenda. Alder Larson, you had a quick comment?
Yes, I did. I don't know if this would be a possible future agenda item or not, but I've gotten some comments from the citizens and walking up in front. This building looks terrible. The front of this building, whenever you see it on the newspaper or something, the sign out front is all discolored and there's black streaks coming down from the windows and I'm just wondering if this committee can start, if it's up to this committee to start moving forward to spruce this building up and make it look appropriate before it decays any further. If the concrete needs any sealing, what needs to be done to protect the outside of this building so we can get it to last longer. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I think just to answer that, we have a new facilities manager who's putting together a kind of a laundry list of projects for our facilities right now. And a year ago, we looked at, I can't remember, crystal cleaning or something like that would come in and power wash and clean the outside, and then some of the grates on the windows and stuff around the building and stuff. So those will all be kind of packaged into CIP projects if they're large enough. Otherwise, they'll be just used out of the operating budget as we move forward.
And would that be happening? And the reason why I brought this up, because I didn't know if what the process would be if this would have to be talked about and then sent to finance and such. And I just wanted to get this moving forward so we could get it done this summer. You know,
Sure, I don't know what we'll be able to get done this summer with the budget that we have, but we'll have to work with that.
You know, it reflects on the city the way our building looks, you know,
Yeah,
and I just thought I would bring that up. Thank
Yep,
you.
and that's kind of a discussion that I want to have in finance also, from a facility standpoint, is to see if they can get started on working on a long-term facilities maintenance plan, so that there's a plan ahead for things like roofs and, you know, things that have a finite lifespan that people know will eventually need done, so that we can kind of get a jump on the planning for those projects and not wait until they're emergencies. But that's different, definitely a different committee's agenda, but that's on my radar too.
Then, Eric, with what you said, could there be a possibility how long in the future would it take for you to present us with a laundry list that you described?
I think it would be presented as CIPs, you know, through the capital improvements budget process.
So July?
Yeah,
July-ish, yeah.
there'll be portion, we won't have a comprehensive list this year. It's gonna take Leo probably another 12 to 18 months, you know, as he works through, but yeah.
Gosh, every time I see that sign on the Wausau Pilot Review or any newspaper, it just looks terrible, you know, it's all discolored and it's terrible. Thank you.
Okay. All right. With that, we are out of agenda items, so I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Wadinski, second by Neal. Members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll stand adjourned.
We are out of agenda items. so
Thanks,
I'll take a
everybody.
motion to adjourn.